In today's video, we are revisiting F1 a game that a lot of people didn't really like for the lack of traction and the understeer. Will it hold up to the test of time, or will it still have the same opinions as before? With that being said, let's get into the heart of the video and straight into the action. Singapore on F1 my favourite layout of the Singapore circuit, just simply because of that final sector going underneath the grandstand. I always felt it was so cool to drive, but more on that later on the first lap. For now though, this is the setup that I'm going to be using in today's video, so if by any chance you are driving F1 with Singapore as well, feel free to use the setup and the strategy that we're going to be using for today's video. What is going to be starting on the medium compound tyre, then going to softs later in the stint. 29 kg of fuel, and we are immediately going to be getting on to the starting lights for today's race. We've got 4 lights, 5 lights, and it is going to be lights out, and away we go. Pretty good initial traction, but then having to feather the throttle in the second half, and you can see AI are pretty spread out, so it can be difficult to find a gap. And we are going to go around the outside. We have to give back the position to Latifi, actually. Come on, Latifi, get past. There we go. So we actually didn't really gain too much in the first corner. It happened to take a evasive action, and then of course slightly off the track. So then we had to give back the position to the TP in the end of the situation. Anyway, Daniel Ricciardo behind us in the McLaren. That feels like such a long time ago he was in the McLaren. And as well, we've got Mick Schumacher up ahead in the Haas as we go round the outside of Yuki Tsunoda. Up the inside of K-Mag as well. I wasn't really expecting that, but being able to sort of thread the needle through. 2 AI side by side up ahead. Can we get a good exit? No, we got stuck up behind Mick, and that compromised our exit. Maxim's going to go around the outside of us again. Is he going to make it successful? We're going to try and go around the outside of these 2 cars. We have to leave a lot of space on the inside, quite simply, because we were 3 wide there, and we was literally only just able to scrape our way through that corner, and that was lovely jubbly. But yes, going into the final sector now, as I alluded to on the starting grid. This is my favourite version of the Singapore circuit. Just simply because as you go through this section, it's so technical, so difficult, especially on a qualifying lap, to try and maximise. As your tyres begin to overheat, you start to lose grip, you have to keep composure, and it is such a situation of just mental clarity. Not making a mistake through there is so critical, and it is so easy to do, especially as your tyres start to deg away during a race stint. Oh, so many cars have ended up in the barrier on the outside of that section, and I really thought it added a sort of layer of drama to a qualifying lap, but also a racing situation as well, because it was almost guaranteed a safety car going through that section. Well, you're pretty much almost guaranteed a safety car in Singapore anyway, but yeah, I just like the section quite a lot. As now we're coming up the back of Lance Stroll, we was able to do purple first sector. Something that was really a standout feature of F1 well, I don't know if I'd call it a feature, characteristic is probably a better wording for it, is a lack of traction. It was so easy to get wheel spin on this year's game, and so easy to get understeer as well. And that's something we spent the whole time fighting in F1 esports at the time. That was called F1 sim racing. So it was really trying to set the car up to get traction and get understeer out of the car as we tried to go around the outside of Lance Stroll. And I think it might be possible, as now we're going to be side by side, trying not to overly drain our battery. And now on the brakes, he's going to try and hang around the outside of us. We clunk over the inside curbing, but we do get the position done up into P11, lap 2 of 15 here in Singapore. But yes, something that we was always trying to fight in setting up the car for F1 esports was just that understeer and the traction of the car. And if you could get more traction in the car without adding any understeer, I was going to say any additional understeer, but if you get traction in the car without adding extra understeer, you was really in a good place. But more often than not, the more traction you added to the car, the more understeer it had, because simply it was just softening the rear suspension, you was making the rear wing higher on its value, and it really became a balancing act of trying to get the understeer out of the car while trying to maintain good traction. And more often than not, it was a balance that I didn't find anyway, and I don't think many people did find that balance. But when you did find that balance, you had a really, really big pace advantage on the setup comparing to other people. Speaking of big pace advantage, it was probably like a 10th, but in F1 esports, that is worth quite a lot, especially on a racing stint. Now getting back into the race right now, you can see closing up to Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin. Yeah, this is a bit weird. This feels like a bit of a blast from the past right now to see him in the Aston Martin racing on the grid. Can we do what we did to Lance Stroll as well? Seems to be a bit of a weakness of the AI that we're able to get around the outside there. And now he's going to be ahead of us, what means we're going to have to go up the inside into the right-hander, late on the brakes. Again, very similar to Lance Stroll last lap. Able to get back on the power. That wheel spin is exactly what we was talking about earlier. So easy just to light up the rear axle on this year's game and then compromise your ability to get out of the apex. Something that I'm going to spend my whole time fighting in this video, I feel like. Short shifting was huge in this year's iteration of the game. More often than not, we was going through corners in like 4th or 5th gear, just trying to maintain good traction on the exit. And then now we're going to be opening up the DRS behind Sergio Perez. The leaders are not a million miles away, so providing we can have a good stint here, we can be in a nice place to catch him towards the end of the race. You can see, just carrying 4th gear throughout the corner, really trying to prioritize good exits as well, and minimize any opportunity to get wheel spin. 5th gear through that corner as well, and you see the traction was still pretty decent on the exit. The car was not bogging down, just showing the lengths that we used to go to try and keep traction in the car in this year's game. Let's try 4th gear through here. See, it works. It works. I actually forgot about that. I guess I was using 4th gear through there back in the day as well. But a corner that you would normally be taking in 2nd or maybe 3rd gear was more or less a 4th gear corner on this year's iteration of the game. Probably not close enough to Perez to do what we did on the AI, but we're going to try anyway. Oh, we are close enough. That is lovely jubbly. Thank you very much. That is definitely a weakness of the AI on this track, and something that we're looking to use to our advantage to win this race today. As we get higher and higher up the grid, it's a nice opportunity to be overtaking the AI and minimizing any time loss because of it. Carlos Sainz, of course, is a teammate in Ferrari on this year's iteration of the game. And what a season that was, coming into a new regulation, coming into a new skill set of car, and something that really changed the driving style, going towards the ground effect and having to really focus on not overstressing the car in the middle entry of the corner, well, middle of the entry I should say, and making sure the platform of the car is as stable as possible. Really changed, I think, in a detail anyway, about how drivers went about maximizing the car's performance. But we're going to be looking to maximize my own performance right now and get a good right-hander and open up DRS with the overtake button and clearing Carlos Sainz as we go into the middle sector. We can turn off the overtake button now. It's going to go defensive. We're going to try and brake late around the outside. Actually not. We're going to go for the switchback. See you later. And we will be getting on with our race. That was actually quite smooth, to be honest. I wasn't expecting that to happen. But now we've got 2.9 seconds to be catching up to Lewis Hamilton. Only 31% on the battery. And something I've already noticed, it's quite difficult to get the battery back up, it seems. Comparing even to F1 23. Of course, F1 24 is really easy to get the battery level back up. But this seems like not the easiest situation, and if you are going to use it, you really have to think strategically how you're going to place it as well. Already starting to adjust my driving style, already starting to short shift a bit more, looking for that traction. It's just coming back to me with every, I say that and we have a big snap of oversteer, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking so much, but as I was going to say before, I ate my own words with the wheel spin. Just every sort of corner, every single lap, you get the feeling back for how you wanted to rotate the car on this year's game, how you wanted to get back on the power, how you wanted to be balancing the car in the corners. Of course, F1 24 has basically infinite front grip, so you could pace the front end wherever you wanted, but on this year's game, you really had to focus and think ahead to minimize any chance of that wheel spin and then also maximize the traction on the exit. We're doing it pretty successfully on this lap so far. You can see really taking short corners, keeping a higher gear, and running the car out to use up all the road possible. 3.1 seconds to Lewis Hamilton up ahead. 3 laps away from our pit window, down to 4th gear. You can see now really just driving in quite a nice way, to be honest. Taking 4th gear, that was a nice rotation through there. And you can see, just getting back in the flow of the game, a bit of a mistake there, taking the inside curbing too much. Only able to gain like 5% battery, even though we did not even touch overtake button since this point on the last lap, showing how difficult it is actually to regenerate that overtake button. So, hopefully in the pit lane, something can help us, and we can start gaining back the battery ability. Already down to 2.8 seconds to Lewis Hamilton. Let's see what we can get. Considering we made the mistake last lap, where we can actually be at the end of this current lap. We're almost improving on our delta as well, even though my tyres are dramatically more worn than they were at the start of the race and around Singapore. That makes such a big difference. But just mainly getting back in the flow of this year's game, getting back in the flow of the grip, as I alluded to earlier, is making all the difference in trying to extract the maximum performance coming around the final corner. It's not going to be... Actually, no, it is going to be a new fastest lap of us. Actually, no, it's not. It's 4 milliseconds away, but shows how much we're able to learn already about the game and getting back to the limit of the grip and how the game wants to be driven. 2.3 seconds to Carlos Sainz behind us. 2.2 to Lewis Hamilton, and now down to 5th. A little bit wider than the previous lap, but committed back to the power. Up to 40% on the battery just briefly there, but we want to save it to try and overtake the AI when we do arrive there. Running good speed, back on the power. Carry 4th gear through here again, because that was quite nice. That was very nice, actually. Bit of wheel spin on the exit, but still didn't compromise us too badly. Bit better through there, didn't clunk over the curb. And now 39% on the battery. Gaining another 3, 4, 5% through the right hander. We're going to short shift to 5th as we go over the left. That was much better. Down to 3rd. I think... I'm not too sure if I should short shift to 4th there on the exit. Might give it a try. 2 seconds now to Lewis Hamilton. Keep it in 4th again. That was nice. Probably a bit too much on the inside curbing. But now really focusing, getting in the zone of this year's game. Nice over the inside curbing again. With left hand, compromise the exit to open up the power a little bit. What I mean by compromise the exit there is because the wall comes to you quicker than you actually think it does. So if you get back on the power too soon, you just end up understeering towards the outside wall and have to get back out of the throttle. But if you learn to manage it, be a bit patient, you get on the power later, but you can actually get back to full power sooner. Lap 8 of the race. Cars are already starting to box. Oh, they're good timing. And we got a corner cut warning through turn 1 as well. Interesting situation for me. I'm of course going to the softs. So I think almost I should probably box opposite comparing to the other cars. Or the majority of the other cars. Because, of course, an undercut going to soft on this track is worth seconds. And if none of these cars box up ahead, we might actually find ourselves ahead of them by the time they box one lap following us. So we'll jump from P8 all the way to P3, I reckon, if we did do that successfully. Of course, that's a big if. None of the cars box ahead. Everyone on medium. So I saw Carlos Sainz on the hard compound tyre earlier. Let's try the short shift to 4th. Yeah, that's just better. It's just better. Always short shifting on this game is better, it seems. There's no exception to the rule. But yeah, as I was saying, Carlos Sainz was on a hard compound tyre earlier. So I have to wonder what the AI will go to. If they're going to go to softs like I will, or if they'll go to hard compound tyres like Carlos Sainz started on. Into the final sector. Let's be ready to box opposite. And let's be ready to do something a bit inventive in this race. Of course, our original lap was lap 9, but maybe we could change it. I think we're going to change it. We're going to see what we can do. Boxing 1 lap early. Pit lane line is much earlier than before. Why is the line there? No, hang on. So literally, the pit lane line is there, but you don't actually get the pit lane until here. Okay, maybe my undercut is totaled. I don't think I have the button mapped either. Okay, I don't have the button mapped either. But the undercut is over. There we go. Well, it is what it is. It is what it is. Oh, big wheel spin. Not ideal. Right, we need to get our head back in the game. And we need to see if we can actually recover some time from this whole situation. Oh, yeah! I remember now, F122 had the outlaps were quite difficult because of tyre temperature. Wait, I need to bring up the graph for you just in a second. So yeah, softs are not going to be too bad, but when you was undercutting with a hard compound tyre, especially on this year's game, it was really difficult because the tyre temps would take forever to come up. Oh yeah, so let's see what happens on this outlap. At the moment, Carlos Sainz, on a warm set of medium compound tyres, is faster than us, just about. Okay, now it's switched as our tyres are coming up to temperature. But bear in mind, he was like 2.5 seconds behind us. So because of that pit entry, and my lack of ability to map the button before the video started, we've lost a heap of time. Some AI are starting to box on this lap. They are boxing on this year as well, just to clarify. Middle sector was purple through the right-hander. Starting to build some confidence with his tyre now. Into the final sector, running nice and close to the wall. It'll be pretty difficult to win from here, in all honesty. Because of that mistake, we're probably not going to get the clean air I was once hoping for. But I think if we can push back to getting a podium, I think that'd be very successful. For on-track antics anyway. The off-track stuff in the pit lane, we kind of bottled. Anyway, you can see coming out the pit lane is the people that we were fighting originally before. There we go, and that's Hamilton. So we still have undercutted Lewis Hamilton, who was directly ahead of us, despite the fact that we, of course, had the slow pit entry and the slow pit stop. What alludes to the fact we probably lost about two and a bit seconds. So we probably could have been ahead of Norris. Norris is heading up this train, of course. Still some cars yet to box. They are on the soft compound tyre as well, what is not good news for us. I was hoping we'll get lucky and they would box for like halves or something. But still, we need to make hay while the sun is shining and make up these positions before our tyre difference gets too much comparing to the cars ahead. Short shift to fifth, getting more grippy, more power. Not able to go around the outside of Alonso there. Need to remember to short shift to fourth, because there is no traction. Right. Into the right-hander. Bit of understeer there as well. Hamilton 4/10 behind us. He is going to, of course, have a lap fresher tyres. I'm not really sure how much that's going to correlate into grip. From the left, through the right. Seems like we're already starting to struggle a little bit on grip here. Seems like we're not all over the back of Fernando Alonso like I would have really hoped to be. Right, DRS open. We do set the fastest lap of the race, but I reckon that will get beaten. Into turn one, second warning of the race. I was too much looking at Esteban. Can we go around the outside of him? Yes, we can. That is a very critical overtake for us in today's race. 9/10 to Fernando Alonso, what means we're going to have to do a really good middle sector to make sure that we don't drop out of the DLS. Right, I was turning off the DRS, not the ERS there. That's not a good idea. Right, this middle sector has to be on it. Fourth gear, look for the traction. Through the right-hander. Building back up the power. That was nice. Can't use the overtake button because I don't want to waste it. We actually hit the wall on the outside there. Was able to gain a 10th to Alonso. Remember, fourth gear this lap. Still got wheel spin, even in fourth gear. But we was able to close up to Fernando Alonso just minutely on this lap as well. So that's good news for us, of course. Looking for the traction. Much better traction than last lap. Second away from Alonso. So this final sector has to be really good. Into fourth. Touch the curb on the inside. Through the right-hander. Just trying to throw the car at the track right now. Extrapolate the pace. That final sector was really good. We closed the gap to Alonso to 6/10. And that's exactly what we needed to do. DRS wide open. And we got a new fastest lap of the race. That one might stand because that was a much better lap. Even though we lost. Okay, it won't stand. Sebastian Vettel beat us to it. I ate my words again. that was not good timing. Now actually getting closer and closer to Alonso as I'm starting to work out how to drive this soft compound tyre and maximize its pace capability. Maybe the chance of the podium paying position is not over in today's race. Need to do better with that inside curbing. I can't work out right now if it's better to hop over the inside of it, even with the car bottoming out. If it's better to drive around the outside of it. Even so, we've got a few more laps to work it out in the DLS of Alonso down to fourth gear. Rotate the car, just careful on the traction. Now going into the final sector that I love. Through the right hand, open up the corner. Alonso seems to be dropping off the back of Lando Norris, so struggling a bit with pace. If he loses the DLS, we need to be capitalizing on it straight away and then closing up to the back of Lando Norris. Clearly Lando has a really strong pace, a really solid pace in today's race. Through the final sector, George Russell does the fastest lap of the race, 39.1. Lando Norris doesn't do the fastest lap. I thought he would, to be honest, with how much he's clearing off. Alonso does not have DRS on this lap of the race. We need to strike while the iron is hot, or whatever the saying is on that subject. But we need a good right-hander. We do get a good right-hander. We get good traction as well. DRS open, battery is deployed, and we are going to be deep in the slipstream here. We need to be critical with our overtake. Alonso's going to go defensive, and he's going to go for the switchback. Well, we're going to go for the switchback anyway. Very similar to what we did earlier with the AI, and again, very smooth, very lovely job, Leigh. And I actually quite like that, to be honest. I like that the AI was late on the brakes. Of course, I could predict it. It's something that I was able to predict, so I learned the AI characteristic from earlier in the race. But I like the fact the AI were late on the brakes there. It seemed quite aggressive. It seemed quite good, you know? I can't really remember if they do that kind of thing in F124. As we get a big snap of wheel spin as we're trying to close into the back of Lando Norris. Very critical we get into his DRS zone, even though we have little to no battery available to us. We did do purple on that first sector of the race as well. Of course, deploying so much battery and having DRS available to us as well was the really main factors allowing that to happen. Down to 9/10 to Lando Norris. A few laps to go in this race. Really critical we nail this through the right hand, and that was good. I was gonna say it was really good, but then we bounced off the curb in a way that wasn't completely ideal. So it went from really good to just about good. 1.1 seconds to Fernando Alonso right now into turn one. Really struggling with the curbs, to be honest. In a good way. In a good way. It's quite nice that you can't just drive over curbs like they're not there, and it actually is unsettling the car to some level, to some degree. DRS open one more time. We're going to be trying to save our battery for one clean attack going on to the final lap against Lando Norris. Does fifth gear work here? Fifth gear does work there. Maybe I should have been using that earlier in the race, but oh well. We've got one more lap to use it later. Into fourth gear, rotate the car through, clunk over that inside curbing, use up all the road on the exit. What are our tyres at? 36% on the rear. Down to fifth gear. Trying to keep the car tight. We'll run fifth gear all the way through here. That was much better. Again, I should have been using high gears for longer. But it is what it is. Lesson learned. And that DRS wide open. 12% back on the battery now, so was able to save quite a little bit. Down to fourth gear. Rotate the car. Bit of understeer now. The front left is starting to really go off, and we have to focus on our ability to be smoother and turn the wheel slower to keep the grip in the front left tyre. So easy to generate understeer on this year's game. through the left-hander, over the curb, through the right-hander, kiss the curb, up against the wall, again through the chicane. Seems like we're quite strong against the AI here. And now, going on into the final lap of the race, up behind Lando Norris, we are going to have 10% battery, not much grip. A mistake going on to the DRS straight here. It's going to cost us a chance. Lando Norris is 8 tenths ahead, so we wouldn't even have had a chance to overtake him even without that mistake. Now we need to try and extrapolate something in the middle sector. Through the right-hander, back on the power oh so carefully. Through the left-hander, just trying to feed the wheel in, not get any extra understeer from the car, using a bit of overtake button. And now we need a section of our lives here to even have a chance of getting onto the back of him. But it's just going to be too far. It's going to be too far away. We're going to rely on a mistake at this point from Lando Norris to try and get back onto his opportunity to overtake him. But we made a mistake ourselves. It wasn't him who made the mistake. It wasn't him who cracked. It was us. And now through the right-hander, to be honest, not really much we can do now. 45% on the rear tyre wear. And Lando Norris is going to be just too fast. And we're going to looking to just try and bring the car home in P4. Considering the race, considering circumstances, I'm quite happy with that. It was an enjoyable race. It was enjoyable to revisit this game as well. And it's definitely better than I actually remember it to be, in all honesty. But as we go for the final corner, a lot more understeer. And we are going to be taking the car home in P4. F1 22 done and dusted. Much better than I remember it to be. Then again though, I did only drive it for 15 laps around Singapore and I didn't have to sweat it for the whole year. So I do take that into the judgment of my opinion. F1 2021 is up next on this little series and I look forward to making that video. Thank you so much for watching. Grazie Vazazzi. Ciao ciao. Bye bye.